So basically, COVID-19, it affected the youth very much, where some felt apart from their families, some got closer, but all of this scenario had a very serious effect on the mental health of the youth. So 70% of the youth were facing some mental issues, among which in September 2020, we had 17% youth, that is like 1 out of every 6 individuals, had some critical issues with their mental health. Proceeding on, by December 2020, the number had risen to 20%. So that meant that 1 out of every 5 individuals was actually under the influence of isolation, and that has resulted in very, very negative effects onto the mental health. I was 15 years old.
I was 16 years old.
I was 15 at the time. I feel like COVID was a really different experience for a lot of different people. For some people, it was just like a small speed bump on the road, but for some other people, it caused a very big impact into their personality. And that's why I feel like it's a very subjective matter.
My family and I spend a lot of time together. We watch shows and document and stuff. But the thing is, forcing everyone to be together in a situation like this, it becomes frustrating to a degree. And even though we were closer together, it caused everyone to be angry a lot of the time.
My family was never that close to me, honestly. They weren't the first people I would go to with my problems. My friends were, of course. But what actually happened in the pandemic is my father and I started playing chess together. My father started teaching me about chess, all that he knew. He had played it back in his day, and now he was teaching me. Every weekend we would just sit down and have a family game night.
I would say that, when you have to spend time with, especially your family member, for so long, consistently, you start to get irritated and you get really sick of each other. And I would say the one main thing that we did learn was understanding our boundaries. We understood that there was a certain time when you shouldn't be, engaging in too much conversation. Everyone should, have a little break, some time to themselves. And I feel like that those boundaries and even understanding what to talk about and what not to talk about, what is a comfortable family topic of conversation in the living room was really important. And that time really helped us explore that sort of concern.
Even before the quarantine, I was generally an anxious kid, but because of being confined in such limited space and only ever hearing terrible things about what was going on in the world, it made me become nihilistic to a degree, thinking that nothing matters and everything was going to be miserable at the end.
Before the pandemic, I actually used to be a really extroverted kid. I used to do debate tournaments, I used to participate in school events, I used to do drama skits and everything of the sort. But when the pandemic actually hit, it hit me hard. I became really introverted at that time, and just to have that little bit of social interaction, I started going on online forums and anywhere I could find where I could actually go and talk to people. But obviously, that wasn't enough. Face-to-face conversations are necessary, and I wasn't getting that as a child. Because I was only 16 at the time, I needed a little bit of face-to-face interaction to know how to deal with situations I had in. But I couldn't do that due to the pandemic, except for obviously talking to my family. That really put me back into my shell, and I became introverted as things went.
Before the pandemic, I was quite extroverted, but I realized that after the pandemic, I became so comfortable in my own silence and in my own company, especially after finally, properly, I would say, getting the time to grieve my father's death, which had happened around 1 or 2 years prior. I became very introverted, and till this day, I still feel that introvertedness shine more than my extrovertedness.
If there was any advice I would give to anybody, it would just be to have your boundaries set straight. Because having those boundaries when you're locked in a room and a house with your family is really essential, because make sure you don't cross those boundaries, or don't just distance yourself too far from your family, because obviously family is the most important thing you have.